which is maybe like the undead Michael Jackson. That's the demon that I would summon into the. I think. I'm not sure. That's a tough one for you to start the show on, Matt. I'm really sorry. But today I am joined by Matt. Hi, Matt. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. Yeah, how are you?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Very happy, very much looking forward to talking to you today about the exciting stuff that we've got to hear from you. So I'm really looking forward to that. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who is going to join us live at some point. And I want to say thank you to everyone on the Small Gamer Patreon. You guys are great. Yeah, so I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Day 66. It's getting quite warm. What's it like where you are? Where are you based?
Oh, I've got fans on. We've got me and my girlfriend. We've got fans on everywhere. But yeah, I'm based in Vauxhall. I'm floating on the Thames, living the life on a houseboat. It's great. I've got the roof. It's nice. There's a nice pier to exercise on. It's spacious. You know, if I wanted to be locked down anywhere, I'd probably be here. So it's good.
It would be on a houseboat. I won't lie to you. I think this is the first call I've had with anyone on a houseboat. What's it like living on a houseboat? I gotta ask. I don't.
If you're motion sick, then like it's not for you. But luckily, I have zero balance, and it's all right. I mean, you float about a bit. It's quite calming actually. It's like being rocked to sleep at night. Yeah.
Would you advise it? Would you advise it as a life to live? Sounds good. You sound happy.
Yeah. If you're in for chill vibes, if you like sort of sun, lunch outdoors, it's great.
Acoustic guitar. Soft folk rock. Then the life is. Yeah. All right, well,
Hey.
brilliant. So we're going to get to everyone who's just joined us live. Matt has been doing really well on Tabletop Simulator, so been playing some Age Sigmar. So we're going to find out some of his secrets and also what he's been running, and maybe having a little bit of a discussion about the gaming meta, which doesn't exist but kind of exists around in the world. So I think that's fun. Big shout out to Adam Jackson, K-Dread, Owen, and Tristan. Thanks for joining me live, you legends. So yeah, we're all going to be hanging out and talking about that. But before we do, I'd love to know more about you. Where you're from? Or how did you start Warhammer? What got you into it?
Okay. God, I was like 7, and my dad got me some of those. I don't even know what like edition it is. Like, oh, there's not like one of those starter painting sets with like some Space Marines or whatever. And I was absolutely atrocious at painting them, and that fully put me off for about 7 more years. And then another friend of mine at school, he got some Tau or something, and I was like, oh, they look pretty cool. And I was like, oh yeah, I remembered I used to do all this stuff, and he sort of got me back into it. And then I played 40K, I think originally.
When was this?
Started with
So
Tau.
when did you? How many years
Oh
ago was it getting back
God,
into it?
like, I mean, how old am I now? How old am I? I'm like
You're
20,
24, babe.
24. Cool, that's
Hi, Matt's girlfriend.
Hello.
I mean, it's like I want to say like 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and then I saw Lizard Men, and my heart was stolen, and that was it. It was a whirlwind romance with Warhammer Fantasy, and then I pretty much played. Well, I tried to play a lot of fantasy, but so I'm from Bedford originally. There wasn't like a huge fantasy scene down there. There's like 3 of us that played fantasy, and so we all got very, very bored of playing each other very fast. So yeah, I pretty much played Lizard Men, and then I got into some Dark Elves. I bought a load of Crossbowmen, and then I started going to Warhammer Fantasy tournaments a bit with all my Crossbowmen, and I didn't make very many friends, but that's all right. And
Did you make people? Did you make some people cross?
maybe crossbow definitely.
That didn't
Yeah,
work.
and
I
then
tried to make a cross-med joke. I didn't get there. But leave some comments on how I failed in the chat.
yeah. Then I went to drama school, and sort of stopped because it's like 40-hour days, so I didn't really have time for Warhammer for like 4 years, and then yeah, then I sort of finished that on 40-hour days. That's not right. 40-hour weeks. And then I sort of finished that, and I sort of got back into Age of Sigmar, and here I am. There you go.
And
Oh,
now I'm the
amazing.
third.
Sorry, what was that? No, get her in. What's being
She's
said?
a Warhammer widow now. That's all.
I'm the third wheel.
Well, there is a support group. Does she know about the support group for Warhammer Widows?
Is there
there's-
actually?
There
I'd
is
love to
one.
be part of that.
There you go.
It's just
Oh
a
my
Zoom.
God.
It's just a Zoom chat where everyone is drinking a lot of wine. That's all it is. Like,
That sounds pretty good, actually. I want to get on that Zoom chat. Get me in there.
I remember a few years ago having dinner with my very good friend Jacob Berry, his lovely wife Margot, also a few other people, but specifically they were over from America. They were in Warhammer World, so they were doing the whole trip around the UK, and they obviously were spending the day in Warhammer World. And the wives were like, "What can we do to support them? Only we don't want to play ever or be involved in any way. But what can we do?" And asking me, and I was like, "You could make them read the pack. That's the only thing you could ever do." Like, because I don't know a single man who's ever read a pack for a tournament. Not once, not ever.
Famous. If you read a pack, do you even play Warhammer? I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like if they did like video packs and it was some
Yeah.
sort of interpretive dance, like I'd be more likely to see it. Or they
Yeah,
snuck it in with a painting tutorial. Like, it's just a guy like, and then just apply the red, and don't forget, no characters above 400 points.
Don't get your secondaries,
So, Lizardmen, is there a specific model in Lizardmen that attracted you? Was it the whole range? Obviously, it wasn't Saurus Knights.
No, you know what? I've never actually been that. I think I don't own a single Saurus Warrior. Come at me, Lizardmen players.
What?
But I don't own a single Saurus Warrior.
Why?
I don't think. I don't know. I was never
Are you-
Saurus. I was
are you
always
serious?
attracted to them. What really got me into them? At the start, when in fantasy, it was when you had those unit of Croxagore, and then you could ring them with skinks. And I thought it was so cool. You could have like two different models in a unit back then, and they also were just the rules are great and frogs, man, psychic frogs from space.
I mean, Psychic Frogs from Space is, well, pitch it to me. I've always wanted to do a Lizardman mirror match where both players take mushrooms and just go wild. I don't think I should.
Leave that to the Gits players,
Yeah, I will leave that to those. Anyway, no Saurus Warriors is wild. I'm not going to lie to you. I hadn't expected that. Big dinos? Are you excited? It's just the skinks or just the frogs? No, or the dinos interest you at all?
I've got some Temple Guard, but they're not really Saurus Warriors, are they? I don't know. Big dinos. Who doesn't love big dinos? I don't know. What is? They have that sort of you know how it is when you're trying to pick an army to play, and they when you're getting into it, you're like they have that certain thing you can't put your finger on. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a connection, isn't it?
It is absolutely. It's how I feel about my Chaos Dwarves. When I see them, I'm just like, you're so little. What are you going to do in such a horrible world? Yeah, you just got tiny shields and you're covered in armor. You're as tough as a skink, apparently. Like, just get through your life.
I don't say those. Oh, God.
Right. Well, so when you got into Age of Sigmar, did you get into it in the early days, or did you get into it more like GHB sort of times?
No. I got into the early. I was for a long time. I was when I heard about Age of Sigmar, I was like, oh, how dare they? I was a big like anti Age of Sigmar. Me and some of my friends were like, oh, this is going to be awful. And then the rules came out, and we were like, it doesn't even have units in squares. They have round bases.
Disgusting.
I was like, I'm never playing it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to only play 40k. And look at that. How things have changed. Yeah, I don't know. I just sort of fell into it, I guess, because it was better than nothing, I guess. And then I realised the error of my ways, and that it was actually a far better game.
To be fair, I had exactly the same feelings as you, and I think many people did. Like, I think it's a very, especially like the early negative feelings. I still don't think I've, like, as much as I love Age of Sigmar, I still sometimes, like, against which I'm probably like, how good Age of Sigmar? I was like, yeah, fuck you still blew up the old world. I loved it. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
it's
just such it's like an easier game, I think, to expand upon than Fantasy was, because Fantasy it was a great game. I'm not gonna lie, but it was very inaccessible, I guess, and I can see like why they did it and why they
Yeah.
made that move. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Okay, well, that's exciting. So, once you got into Age of Sigmar, what armies did you play? How did you do? What did you like? What did you hate playing? Loads of questions.
obviously
Loads.
Seraphon straight up. I thought jump in where you started. I actually I decided to buy a new army from scratch. I looked at all my old stuff, like all my old painting, and went ugh. And then, as you do, if you leave it a few years, and then I bought a load of Lizard Men, and what was it? There was the first sort of match play event they did was the Warlords, I think,
Oh,
ages at Warhammer World.
oh yes, Warlords. The first one that they did at Warhammer World. I live streamed that. Yeah, Warlords, the Warlords event.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think me and a few friends went, well, you know what? Let's get some 2K armies together and just see how we do. And I thought, well, I'll buy Lord Croak. I'll see how it does. Yeah, it was a great time. But I remember back in the heydays, there was a lot of janky stuff. I remember when Iron Jaws were really good. I mean, they sort of went through a dip, didn't they? And they came back. There wasn't anything I really hated playing. I don't think. I pretty much stuck with Lizardmen for a long, long time until only I think about 2 years ago, maybe now. And then I got some death stuff. But it's so interesting how fast the meta changes because I've only really I guess got into tournaments Age of Sigmar tournaments in the last year and a half or so, and then I've sort of started to follow the meta, I guess, and follow what's hot, what I should be afraid of. I don't know. I'm definitely a tournament gamer. I've really got into that side of it, I guess.
What was your way into that tournament side? Was it you went to some, or some of your friends
Yeah,
started to
I
get
just
involved?
went. I've always me. I have a good friend he's living in China right now. I know, not the best place to be, but
Uh-oh.
he's teaching English out there. He's called Josh Jenkins, and he's an old school friend of mine. And we also used to go to doubles tournaments, and I think that's how I got into it because it's always more fun with a mate, isn't it? So we'd go and we'd think we'd build the coolest builds, and we'd be like, yeah, we're gonna win all our games and destroy everyone in front of us, and then we normally lost most of them, and yeah, I think we used to think we were really yeah, we're really good at this, and we really weren't. But that's it, innit? And you learn, and I don't know, I caught the bug, isn't it? You catch the bug, and then I started going to a few singles events, and
What's been your favourite event that you've attended so far since you've been into this kind of a rampage? I don't think that's fair, but I'm going to say it anyway.
No, rampage is a good word. Do you know what? I always enjoy the one dayers at Bad Moon Cafe. Hugh runs a really tight tournament. They're just really, really relaxed, really fun. I love a good one dayer because you're not I don't know, it doesn't take out your whole weekend. I mean, obviously a 2-day event's good fun, but it's just nice. You can play a good day of Warhammer, have a few beers, relax.
Yeah, and it's only really I think that the push or the drive for two players by the competitive community is because they want a better winner. When you end up a one day with X amount of people, you end up with a winner of some sort. Someone has won. But you're oh well, not really. This other guy's won 3 games as well.
Yeah.
It's and I think really it's just a strive to really understand the data. But one dayers are just great. You just turn up, you play for your day, you go have a curry with the lads, you go home, and you're this is wicked. Whereas a 2-dayer on the Monday, you're oh god, that's so terrible.
No, you're why did I ever decide to play Warhammer?
Yeah, what the hell? And obviously there's added costs and other stuff. So I definitely can see why you would enjoy those, even in a competitive setting. I guess the event just has to be sold as something competitive, and then it really works. Also, you don't have go on.
Oh no, just one day is a great chance to try janky stuff and test stuff out before you go to the big events. Whoa. So like you can, I like they're really good to like road test lists. I find and see if you're in the right area.
So before we get on to Tabletop Simulator, is there any on-table games that you've enjoyed? Like any games that have really stood out to you for any particular reason?
Do you mean like what Games of Warhammer?
Yeah.
Or
Well, I mean any games if you want, but yeah, specifically.
I don't know. I'd have to rack my brain. It's never like I guess the game. It's always like I think the opponents that you play. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's always the people I enjoy playing more. If that makes sense. Oh, I've never been like. I mean, obviously, I have a lot of great games. But none spring to memory. Do you know what I mean? It's more the people.
Oh yeah, but who do you like playing? You got any?
Oh,
Anyone?
obviously.
It's your opportunity to make friends. Shout out some people in the community.
No, I'm gonna give the biggest shout out to my nemesis, and he knows it, Owen Jackson.
I just played that fucking gorgeous dickhead. Yeah, he just beat me up with some, unfortunately, bloodthirsters. So it hasn't changed my mind, obviously.
No.
But he has made me respect the fact that he can't roll sixes on bloodthirsters, which made me laugh.
Why? Team Wales dice. That's why. You know.
Those Team Well dice are like the poorer cousins of those Team England dice, definitely. So Colonel Cabby says one day is also a good opportunity to test alternative formats like 1K or interesting secondaries. I agree with that. Also, big shout out to my man Colonel Cabbage. One day when the lockdown is over, me and Colonel Cabbage are going for a beer. That's my plan. I'm coming to London specifically for him to tell me everything about Japanese cinema. I won't understand a word of it, but I can't wait. Yeah, you'll have met him. He's been at the one dayers. You'll have met him. I promise. He's really nice. I promise you've met him. He's just great. And is this Matt who is tearing up TTS? It is. So let's get on to that. So a lot of people have been playing Tabletop Simulator. We have been doing coverage. We did coverage last week, and we are doing coverage next weekend of a Tabletop Simulator tournament. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be really fun. Me and the guys are like prepping to try and make it look a little bit more professional and try and make it work a little bit better. So that's a fun challenge in the lockdown era. But you have been doing fairly well. And what have you been running on Tabletop Simulator, and how have you found it to play games?
It's like, you know what? It's not that bad. It's a bit. I don't know if it's just my Wi-Fi because I've got sort of naff Wi-Fi here, but it's a little bit what's the word, loose. But I mean, it's never going to be like as you know, razor tight as in person anyway. But on the whole, I'm really enjoying it, and I guess it's the next best thing we have, isn't it?
It really is.
To be honest, no, it's good. It's yeah, I've been pretty much running Seraphon exclusively on TTS because you know I've been waiting 4 long years for this book, and it came out, and I was excited. I had loads of events planned to go, and then all this happened, didn't it? And so I just want to get some games in with my lizards, you know, tune the list up for you know whenever we get out of this mess. That was sort of.
Well, yeah, I mean before they go extinct again.
I
guess it's
ground thoughts appear and they become irrelevant or whatever.
So just to be fair, you were running the Seraphon quite a lot before the new book, obviously. I think one of the things that if you look at the worldwide stats for competitive gaming for Age of Sigmar, you'll see not just this isn't you, this is everyone I'm talking to. You'll see actually that Seraphon always still had a good showing. Like even when Seraphon were performing at like 40% win rate, they had a higher. They had a higher meta percentage than both Fyreslayers and Daughters of Cain, both of not combined but individually, both of whom were like tearing it up around the 60% win mark. So like there were people playing with their dinos that are like, I don't care if I'm going to lose, I'm dinoing it up.
Yeah, there's a massive following. Like there's a massive the fan base for Lizardmen and Seraphon. I don't know. I find it's different to other armies. It's like. Okay. People are really they really care about just having fun with their dinos, and there's a real there's a childlike wonder I think that you get with Seraphon that you don't get with other armies, and people really latch onto that, and you know what, they take them to tournaments for fun I think more than anything. Maybe not so much now.
Well, no, I would agree with you. Like, I've bonded. One of the earliest WhatsApp groups I was in was the Seraphon one. All hail the Block Toad, and it was really the only one of the only ones I was in. I also got into Lizardmen in Warhammer Fantasy Battle Days, and it was the narrative for Croak. I was just like, I'm just going to try and make this guy work. Like, he's just a dead frog, but he's so badass that they killed him, but he didn't give a shit. And then he's just like, yeah, he just doesn't care, and he's just so it's just brilliant. Yeah, and also the name's hilarious. Like, it's still funny. He's a frog who's dead called Croak. Amazing.
Gotcha. They got rid of all those like tic-tac-toe, and because the Lizardman character names were just hilarious. They just didn't care.
Do you feel like this is just a quick side note to the chat and to you? Do you feel like, because I was at Games Workshop when the brief came down, the problems with Age of Sigmar. This was, by the way, like when it was, I would consider to be like ramping up. I think it's obviously before the lockdown, I think Age of Sigmar was in a great place. Loads of armies, people were going to tournaments everywhere. The scene was exploding. We were having an amazing time. But at that point, that it came down. They were like, "Oh, the two things wrong with Age of Sigmar is the narrative's not very good, super fair, and it needs to be more gritty and dark." Don't think I agree with that necessarily. And obviously the game isn't very tactical. And I was like, and I was in a meeting when they said that, and I was like, if you don't think it's very tactical, let's go outside of the gaming hall right now. I'll kick your ass 10 times out of 10. Yeah, and they were like, "Oh no, it's not perceived to be tactical." I was like, whatever. Anyway. But the point for me is I do wish that they'd taken a little bit of a lighter thread with the Seraphon. Like, it's got a bit dark with the new book.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that sort of that role is filled by Gits, isn't it? And you can't. I don't know if you can have more than like one funny army. I guess you get it sort of with the Orcs. That's sort of always been their role, I guess, isn't it? Lizardmen have sort of always occupied this weird grey area. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think they're like the thinking man's comedy. That's what I want to say, and that's no disrespect to Nathan. Like, I love him. Like, absolutely, my show host Nathan. Like, yeah, like orcs are funny because they say that they're going to headbutt people, and they do. That's hilarious, objectively hilarious. Yeah, but also some like who doesn't like a good pun? Exactly. Anyway, yeah. So I feel you about the Seraphon, and I can see the love, which is why with their new book, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit. I'm not too bothered about the fact that it's super good.
What a book it is! Oh,
what a book! Yeah.
We're waiting years for this book, and then very happy.
Very happy. All right, but before we go on that, we were talking about Tabletop Simulator. We have gone off on a tangent. So you said that you found it not the tightest, but pretty great. Have you? Have you just been running what you wanted, or have you considered like the armies that are out there? Like, have you been trying to play the meta, if that makes sense?
Do you know, it's funny because I watched your stream when you were on the last tournament.
Yeah.
Because between games I sort of jumped in, and you mentioned like people like tend to run what they own in real life.
Yes. And yeah, that's odd. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I've pretty much exclusively been just writing Seraphon lists, and with stuff I own. And I guess what TTS would be great for, and maybe I should start doing this, is trying like stuff out. You know what I mean? Like trying weird and wonderful stuff that you don't get a chance to take to tournaments until you've got it normally. Do you know what I mean? I think that's where that's the advantage TTS has over like a normal game of Age of Sigmar, and I think that's probably why I might stick around after all this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think people like will probably use it in the future now as like a tool to like up your game in, try things out, if that makes sense. And also,
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it'll be a great teaching tool. I think that there's very much the opportunity for it to be that. I think it'll also be a good way of showcasing, like, so instead of having to get, like, I want to show you this Bone Splitters army versus this army and how that might interact. I don't have to go get Jerry, who's got his Bone Splitters, and then Tom, who's gone and got I don't know why I've done Tom and Jerry there. Wow. His other unit. You could just create it on the game and then show that. So I think it'll be a tool that people use a lot, especially for trying new things out before they purchase it. I think that'll be, and also just to scratch the itch, which I think is one of the things why Games Workshop needs to nuke the entire thing from space. I hope they don't, but they should, because I'm the sort of guy who's like, oh yeah, I really want to run 27 Blood Crushers, so I'll buy them, and then I'll paint them, and I'll build. Well, I'll probably just build them. I probably won't paint them, and then I'll try it 3 times. And I'll be like, I hate this. This is an awful decision. Yeah. Right. Whereas now, I think I could just do it on TTS, and then Games Workshop missed out on all of that money. So I think that's what they need to nuke from space, personally.
Although, please don't. No.
Yeah, but please don't. So if you're not, please don't listen to this show. And they probably don't anyway.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe professional. Who knows?
Anyway, so you've just been running what you own. And therefore, you've been running the Seraphon, and you've been doing really well with it. You won the past 2 TTS tournaments. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
So you are the current world reigning champion at Tabletop Simulator ACMR. Congratulations! I'm calling it right now.
Let me call my mum quick. Mum.
let me just get you a round of applause. Well done. Just get that out. Yeah, I know.
Needed. There you go.
Sorry, I missed that. What did you say?
All the validation I ever needed.
That's all you ever needed. Those. Just right. So, what have you been running? And or we could start with the book if you want. We could start with what you've been running, or how you view the book. Either one. Your choice.
I don't know. Like, let's start with what I've been running. I think because I don't know, it's in my mind. I've been running. So my list was Croak, Astrolith Bearer. I should probably start from the top. I've been running. When I started with the book, I've gone back to the book now. When I started with the book, I mean, you look through it and you look at the 2 allegiances and you go, whoa, -1 damage, coalesced all the way. And I think, like, on the face of it, that looks stronger. But I was chatting with a few people, like Simon Weekly, who's sort of we've been sort of like scouring the book and building lists together, and we sort of arrived at a few lists, and then we sort of evolved them. And he's a great person to bounce lists off, I find. And then I don't know what it was, but he played a game. We wanted to do a mirror match, and he played a game like Coalesce versus Starborn, and I had the Coalesce, he had the Starborn, and he was like, oh, it's so much better, and I was like, no, -1 damage, come on, your salamanders are not going to be as good as my salamanders. And then he absolutely rinsed the floor with me, and it should have been obvious, I think, from like I guess the previous book and the previous handbook rules that teleport and that summoning is innumerably stronger than the -1 damage, I think. And so I've sort of been exclusively writing Starborn lists now, and pretty much never look back at Coalesced.
Really?
Yeah. I honestly think like Coalesced is great for if you want to run lots of big monsters, but apart from that, I wouldn't touch it, to be honest. Okay. What was I saying? So for TTS, Owen pointed out there was a TTS tournament, and obviously my tournament itch went, oh god, I need a tournament. So I started sort of piecing together this Starborn list, and it was Croak, Astrolith, Skink Priest, Star Priest, Celestant Prime. Big fan of Celestant Prime, and I'll come back to him in a minute. Then I had 2 units of 5 Saurus Guard, 10 Skinks, and 1 unit of 3 Salamanders, and then I think 5 individual Salamanders, Balewind, and then what else was it? Oh, Bound Geminids. That's the list, and on the look of it, there's no battalions or anything, no extra CP. On the face of it, I think like when you put it down on the table, it doesn't look like a lot. But man, those salamanders, they clean up. They clean up so good.
I'm really interested in the 5 individual ones. Like, what's the purpose of having those as opposed to another big brick?
Always have one big brick, I think, because that allows you to like do something turn one. It lets you like, especially with the Starborn teleport, it lets you like buff them up, and they can sort of be like a threat because obviously it's 15 drops, or something like that, 14 drops. So you'll probably, be going. Oh well, you won't have the choice. And I find that people give you first turn, so it's good to have that 3 to like do something with. But those 5 units, you keep them off the board with the Dracothions battle trait thing, and having them as ones means they never run from Battle Shock because they're only like 4 models, so you're never going to kill enough for it to matter. It also allows them to like you can distribute your power where you need it to be. If you place them in big units of salamanders, I find you're wasting a lot of stuff. You can like waste power, if that makes sense, if you commit too much, and then you can find your salamanders are in the wrong place or out of range because they've got to stick near the other salamanders. That's the reasoning behind it. I think.
Okay, all right, no, that's completely fair. I can understand that. You said you also, I can see why they're so useful, especially for like a sneaky teleport, just a little unit of 1. That's really hard to screen against, and it's probably, or it might likely kill a little 5 wound character or support piece that you've got at the back of the board. So that's really useful, and I can see why. But I think also the other thing is fun is you could dead drop quite a lot with that. You could just be like 1 salamander, 1 salamander, 1 salamander, 1 salamander. It's like, okay, and they've put a large portion of their army down. And I'm always one for more drops, not less. I know the general the general consensus is like, if you could have 1 drop, go for a 1 drop. But I genuinely think that more is better because you can deploy better and control the board space more often if you're able to. If you're able to do something, like you've said, from that first turn, and that teleport's obviously a good one. Hello, everyone, by the way, who's joined us live. Thanks for joining us live. This is Matt. Matt is kicking it on TTS, and that's what we're discussing, if you guys are interested. Math Mallow in the chat says, I played Matt in the first tournament we played. He was a great opponent. There we go. And Trog, good evening. Hello. And Gorka Morka says Starborn will probably be the more competitive tournament list until Croak gets adjusted by Games Workshop. Then Coalescent might become better.
I don't believe in this. I think Croak, and there's a lot of discussion around this, especially in the Seraphon chat, that Croak is, I don't know, Croak's points. But if you want to make Croak work, you have to invest a lot into him. Like you have to invest in the Balewind, you have to invest in the Astrolith. I think if you look at Croak in isolation, I think he's actually quite reasonably pointed because that triple cast spell is only 10 inches.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand what you're saying. What you're effectively saying is that like to make him the obnoxious output that he is, you start floating around the 500 point mark, which puts him at the same cost as it puts him below Alarielle, and he's better than that. But if you're running him on foot with your army, there's that risk versus reward. I've got to be within 10 inches. But I mean, so yeah, I do understand that argument. I would say that he is like, it's hard for me because like I know that I have some bias in this conversation. Like when Sinesh was being Sinesh, I was like, I don't give a fuck about these models. Ban these suck. But. Yeah. But I got to say that the ability to drop down Mortal Wounds board wide, have an innate +1 to cast, and an innate +1 to unbind, to be able to cast anywhere on the board, unbind anywhere on the board, already is so strong. When you think he can also add command points in, which is obviously wicked, and then he's a 4-cast wizard, 320 is, in my opinion, and you don't have to have the same opinion. That's fine.
No.
We can disagree, and that's great. But I think probably 320 is too cheap. I think 400 feels more reasonable because you can do more obnoxious stuff with him, but you got to pay the points for it. So I agree with that point. I think that's really fair. But I think he brings a lot of He brings a lot to the yard. Like
he brings a lot of utility. I definitely agree with that. He's not a combat monster, though. That's what you've got to remember.
Doesn't he get into hordes really well?
He does, yeah. And In the TTS tournament, the last one, I had a great game where my opponent, I had Croak in the Realm Shaper engine, and
Yeah.
my opponent charged. I think it was like 20 Arcanauts, an Ironclad, loads of other stuff in, and he got like 35 attacks, and it was hilarious. But those, I think those opportunities are few and far between.
You're not helping your own argument much there, though.
No, fair enough. No, he never wants to be in combat, to be honest. Like, I don't know.
Well, Nikos, our first age Lizardman player, refuses to call them Seraphon. He says always be charging with your slants. He only plays combat slants. He refuses to. I think he's going to... he said he might green stuff up like a slan in armour, which I think that would look rad. Frog armour. It's like, if you ever seen...
So cool.
That would look cool. You ever seen armour for cats or guinea pigs? That would look great. Oh, wow. You're getting some criticism in the chat. Mr. Matthew, Rob is really scraping the barrel on day 66. Gosh, that's from someone called Tom Pointy-Eared Prick, though, so I wouldn't be too stressed. So, yeah, Croak seems... Come on, talk to me about your games with Croak. So the way and how you play with him, the way I've seen him be played is he's going to be sat on a Bellwind with the Azeroth Banner Bearer, and he's going to be sat at the back of the board just controlling 50% of the board space with mortal wounds. That's how it feels. Is that how you use him, or is that not the case?
I think there's sort of one of two ways to use him, and I guess that's definitely one. He's a massive defensive piece, and he should be sat at the back, somewhere out of line of sight, on his Bellwind, with the Skink Priest buddies, casting his magic, summoning things, being a general nuisance to your opponent. But obviously in my list, I play Dracothion, so he's my only slan. A lot of people I've seen who do Dracothions take 2 slans, but I sort of...
I don't rate that at all.
Really?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think adding the additional slan is you just adding the points for the summoning, right? Is really why you're there. And I think I'd rather have more board presence, because I think what you said about Croak was really fair. You're spending the extra points to create this thing, and it's good. You're done. Stop. You don't need to I don't think you need to throw in more money after that. You just start adding additional elements. You've got like a wicked piece there. So I think, and that's incredibly defensible. Obviously, I had 5 Saurus Guard, so you can't die.
Well, I went a bit further. I had 10.
Okay.
Because when you 27 wounds is very obnoxious. If you look at it like that, effectively, it's just like adding wounds to Croak. I think that's possibly the most obnoxious thing about the Croak build is the Saurus Guard, because then it just makes him like borderline invincible, I'd say. Especially if you like have him in the Realm Shaper engine, he's got -1 to hit, then cover. You can make him like another +1 save against shooting. I think that's the most obnoxious thing, is like going, you know what? It stops the interactiveness of like your opponent maybe being able to kill him. If that makes sense. Yeah,
no, it does, absolutely. A question is how many times has he actually died in these games that you've played so far?
I don't think he has died.
I think you've proven your own point there. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So you also
he took 3 wounds, but that was like an entire KO shooting phase. So I'd sort of expect that. Yeah.
And that's all.
Sorry.
And that's all he took, just 3 wounds in a whole KO shooting phase.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. He also
takes less, I think, but there you go.
So they did really, they did really well.
Yeah, they did good. Yeah, my 2 up bouncers deserted me. There you go.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know what we're talking about, obviously the Saurus Guard are able to take wounds for Croak because that's their kind of job, is to protect the magic frog. So like you said, you're just paying points for additional wounds right on the frog. So yeah,
and in combat either. They're all right in a pinch, but
they're the only real combat unit. They're not the only combat unit they have, but they're only one like model-wise that are like you're kind of heavy infantry if there was one. Which is a shame. So Croak, have you found any other sneaky tricks with Croak? Do you generally stick him on the bell? Like, how do you use him? Tell me.
It depends on the game. Like, I think and especially in Starborn, the obviously there's the utility thing and the sticking him at the back of the board and the general play that you can do with Croak. but obviously, like I use him to get those salamanders where they need to be, because as he's my Slan in my Dracothians list, I teleport him if I want, and then I can like maybe to the other side of the board where the opponent is. Maybe I need to kill something. I don't know what the situation is, but he can always be where he needs to be with that teleport, and that means those salamanders can always be where they need to be. So I use him as like a salamander drop-off machine, if that makes sense, and especially the summoning. So you can like teleport him to the other side of the board, drop off your salamanders, and then like with your summoning points, you can screen him out with 10 summoned skinks or whatever. And then he's pretty much untouchable, usually. And obviously he's got fly as well. You can do a lot of janky things. You can, teleport him somewhere on top of something high, so he's hard to get to. And you can use him quite offensively like that. And then suddenly your opponent's pinned between your salamanders at your home base and your salamanders that have appeared on the other side of the board. And then they're like, well, I've got salamanders either way. What do I do? And that's again, you can use him as another question. I watched one of your streams with Darren, and you were talking about deployment, and he was talking about posing questions and answering questions, and that's what Warhammer is. And what Croak is a really big question, and you can use him to create multiple other questions for your opponent. But your opponent doesn't know what those questions are going to be. He's so versatile. He's such a great toolkit that you can be like, well, here's this question, here's that question. How are you going to answer all these?
I think about that all the time at the minute, because obviously without playing on real tabletops, I think Tabletop Simulator is a great tool, and I think we're all going to have a great time, honestly. But I think because if we now assume that the Age of Sigmar meta is alive and it's on the tabletop, which I think it is, and we play it.
Yeah.
I think it's alive. I think we're all having these discussions. Like we've seen Legion of Chaos Ascendant. I played a game with them this week. You've been playing the Seraphon, so I think we're going to see that conversation. It might take a bit longer. Obviously, we're still waiting for the Lumineth, so I think we're going to be a bit slower down on the pace, which is nice. But it really is going to start to show some of these armies coming through. And if we were in the real gaming space, I would definitely say that Seraphon would be the big bads that would have a kind of medium win rate because there's so many hobbyists who have them.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they're a bad army like to play against, although it can be quite frustrating when a frog is just in turn 2 just killed all your backline characters and he hasn't moved and is safe behind a billion skinks. But I could see why the Seraphon players want him to be good. So it's hard. I'm torn because I'm like pro Seraphon all the way. Like it's a really tough conversation for me because I'm like, yeah, there's some. Anyway, other strengths. So your Salamander's good, Croak is good. The Astroloth Bannerbearer, he's just there just to do the pluses.
Yeah, he's he just slots in so well with everything else. He makes the army tankier. He makes Croak better. He gives you summoning points. There's no real reason not to take one, and even when they gave you reroll hits, which they don't anymore, which is a shame, but that was a little overpowered, I think. It's just a good fit for everyone, and it's another, they're easy to hide behind things. I personally whack God Beast Pendant on it, and then suddenly, even if your opponent tries to get rid of that 6+ DPR save, then you've got the chance that he comes back. So he's just a neat little piece, I think.
All right, sweet. What else is in the list? Do you see Skinks? How are the Skinks doing?
I've got 10 Skinks, and that's purely because I have to have some battle line. But I've got some Skink heroes. They're purely to buff the Salamanders, to be honest.
Really committed. How many Salamanders were you running? Was it Brick of 3?
I think it's 8.
Then 8?
I think it's 8. Yeah, 8 total.
That's very conservative. I mean, I've painted 12 recently, so 8 seems fine to me.
I think if you go above that, you start to lose more. You start to lose tricks, and I'm a big fan of in a list getting as many tricks in as you can. But yeah, those Skink priests. I think the most obnoxious thing in the Seraphon book was the decision to give Salamanders the Skink keyword. There you go. So the Skink priest is there to give him +1 to hit, and also potentially give him +1 save and run, shoot, and charge if you can get the prayer off on a 3+.
Yeah.
70 points for that hero. That's obnoxious. They should be at least 100, even if they're only 4 wounds or whatever. They're just so good. And the decision to give all the skink priests as well the shooting attacks, they're not bad actually. I'm thinking about maybe including a skink Starseer.
How come?
Because they have a really good shooting attack, and that 3d6 charge, and the spell, but you can give another +1 save or another -1 save to your enemy. I don't know, but the Star Priest I'm running right now is the other hero I have, and he's obviously got the Venom Staff to give those mortals in addition. So what I tend to do is I whack that on the 3-man Salamander unit, and suddenly they're doing mortals to hit and mortals to wound, and it becomes very obnoxious. Obviously, a lot of people I've seen have been running like 40 skinks, and then whacking that mortal wound buff on those, and that does really good output. But if you look at the maths on it, it does actually better output than Salamanders against stuff that has not like a great armor save, maybe like 4+ or worse. But then if you look at Salamanders, obviously the Ren kicks in, and they do like better against sort of, I would call the big bads of like OBR and stuff like that. So that Skink Priest is there. He also fills another reason in the list. He's another wizard, which means that if I want to cast Balewind and Geminids in the same turn, I can try to, because then Croak can pop on Balewind, and then the Star Priest can cast Geminids or whatever. And he still benefits from the +1 from the Astrolith, which is usually enough, I find. And having those little backboard heroes, they're quite handy because you can, especially on hero missions, to nip in and get things, while people are trying to deal with the question of your Salamanders and all that.
So what's your list scared of? Like a question we've had in the chat. Also, a big shout out to Archie for subscribing. Anyone who subscribes to this Wargamer, thanks you guys. You guys are great. What's your list scared of? Do you think? Like, what worries you?
I'm scared of 60 Hearthguard Berserkers.
Okay.
But then
that's a healthy fear.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? Yeah, I'm scared of stuff like that. Stuff that's really good against the list is stuff with like Phoenix Guard. In the first game, I played a Phoenix list. I think it might be Math Mallow who ran the Phoenix list against me in the first TTS tournament. It was like loads of Phoenixes, Frostfires, what they called, Frostheart and Flamespire ones, and that was really like, that game was really dicey because suddenly I was like, those Salamanders were like halved their effectiveness. Those Flamespires can come back from the dead. It's stuff that can like outlast your damage, I guess, which is why 60 Hearthguard Berserkers are quite scary. Anything that ignores magic. So I think, ironically, I'd have a tougher time against stuff like Null Myriad. Not that we ever see them, but
no. I think the things that you might be scared of might be things that like obviously are scared of other stuff. I think is good. I think one of the things, I think you're right. I think we saw on the ones. Hopefully next TTS tournament we'll get to check out your table and see what you're doing. But I think one of the things that we saw when we saw Aaron play with his Seraphon, is that Croak can do a lot of damage, but he can't tank. He can't do everything. But then the Salamanders are there, and they can do a hell of a lot in a turn. And I guess punching through into the Salamanders is genuinely quite hard to achieve, or is that not the case? Like,
what, getting to the Salamanders?
Yeah, getting to the Croak and the Salamanders seems to be the issue.
It depends, because you want those Salamanders. The strength of the Salamanders, I think, comes not just from the shooting, but also from the fact that they're so good in combat. It's like the double threat, because they're essentially like a Bloodthirster that can shoot its combat profile. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
A unit of like 3 of them. And so you do have to take risks with them, and I find they do die. They've only got 4 up save, unless you buff them, obviously. But with my list, like I tend to find like the power level is so strong that they either kill whatever I've sent them to kill, or they they die, or sometimes like they might take out the key target and then they die. I've never gone a game where I haven't lost salamanders, like a lot of salamanders, but if that makes sense. So obviously a lot of Seraphon players screen them out with a lot of skinks, and that's I think that's pretty much what they're there for now. They're cheap screens. So if you build it right, yeah, it's really tough to get into them. But not in my list. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, that's why I think adding that additional slan is a mistake, and you could just take a whole bunch of skinks to make sure that you've got some more defensiveness. We had a question. Is that a War in the Mortal Realms podium certificate I see on the search shelf behind you? Is that
yeah, it is.
There you go. That's from Hugh from the Budboon Cafe. Yeah. All right. So that's interesting. I think. What do you think those triple crawlers might go and hit that croak? Maybe kill him. Probably not. That would be an interesting one.
See. It is interesting.
It is interesting. I'm not sure. So Oh, go on. Carry on.
No, I don't know, because you can just. You can be really obnoxious with Croak, and especially if you put him in the Realm Shaper engine. I'm a big fan of the Realm Shaper engine.
So yeah, so you actually take that, and the general consensus I've seen online is that it's crap. So why are you taking it? Talk to me about that.
I think it's misunderstood, the Realm Shaper engine. You can it's a big trap, I think, because I always say with the Realm Shaper engine, put it in the side you want. And then if you get it, great. Perfect, you've got a garrison. Exactly where you wanted it. And if you don't get it, okay.
Fair enough.
Who cares? It's a massive trap. Either the opponent, because it has to be more than 600 objectives. Mm-hmm. So the opponent can either put a unit in it and they're going to sit there and do nothing, pretty much, unless they're got a decent shooting attack, which not a lot of stuff does. Or it's going to really mess with their deployment because you can't put models on top of it. You can't put models on a garrison, even if they fly. So it just gets in the way, and that's what it's great for. It's great for getting in the way. It's a line of sight blocker, but when Seraphon have a teleport and you have those, board-wide mortals, it's not so bad. So I think it's an auto take, to be honest.
Okay,
that's my take on it.
No, I think that is that's a big one. I think, but you also take the Celestant Prime in your list, right?
I do.
Talk to me about that.
And I didn't previously. I don't know. I just never really looked at the Stormcast book that much because people obviously it's not as strong as it is. I guess when it first came out, it was. And then Simon Weekly opened my eyes to the Celestant Prime, and I haven't looked back since. I love it. It's amazing. The key, it does two roles really. One is it's something else you can put in the sky. Well, maybe three roles. So one is something you can put in the sky. So for that first drop, Prime in the sky, great, over to you. Immediately puts your opponent on the back foot regarding deployment. They start deploying against nothing. Two, he can pop down 9 inches away, obviously, and he's got the Comet Strike Scepter, so it's an additional source of mortal wounds. And it's AOE mortal wounds, so it's even better. So stuff that loves clumping up, like KO in their boats, or if you can maybe catch a few small characters, stuff like Fire Slayers. It's great for zapping those support heroes. But the best thing about the Prime is his rule to change a role once per turn, and the role is the important bit because and obviously it's like Kairos, it stipulates what you can change, but that ability to change the role you can do it on the Comet Strike Scepter. So if you get a good mortal wound comet off with Croak, and you do say maybe on a support hero 2 mortal wounds, maybe 3 mortal wounds, then you can consider bringing the Prime down and because it's changed, you can roll it first, see what you get, and then you can change it. If you don't like it, you can change it to whatever you want. So maybe it's worth it's basically guarantee, and I'm a big fan of guarantees in lists. It lets you guarantee right, that hero's dead. There's nothing you can do about it. Boom, gone.
Yeah.
And the best one I like to do with the prime is you can bring him down and change the charge roll, and because you change the roll, you change both dice. So you can essentially rig a 12-inch charge straight out from just dropping him in 9 inches away. And if your opponent's left like a gap in the screen or something, or like there's an end to the screen, you can like tail that round, and you can get behind things and mess things up. With and he's got a beat stick combat profile, especially if you leave him in the sky, because obviously every battle round you leave him in the sky, he gets 2 more attacks, and he's got that -3 rend. I think it's what 3s, 2s, -3 damage. It's not to be sniffed. So he provides also like a bit more of a punch. He also gives I think order units +1 bravery within like so many inches. Can't remember off the top of my head what it is. And on the turn he comes down, he does a -2 bravery debuff to all units within 12. And if you've been like peppering units with mortal wounds and salamander fire, and you haven't killed all of them against stuff that doesn't have like immune to battle shock, or people that don't start with CP, or stuff like that, bringing him down and doing a few wounds to multiple units, then stacking that -2 bravery debuff, you can actually cause quite a lot of models to flee, and it's something that people don't expect. I think the prime to be doing is inflicting, using him as a bit of a bravery weapon. I don't know. He just brings so much to the table.
Yeah, I think
him.
also, I suppose also with that level of AOE that you're getting from him, from Croak, like mixed in together, you could be like chipping away at units. Like I always feel like one of the things that's again a little bit obnoxious about the Croak thing, but when you include the prime, it's great. Those little 10-man units that you sometimes use to screen an objective or the back of or the side of a board, you get 2d3 mortal wounds on it. There might be a battle shock test going on there now. They're gone, and then some salamanders next turn are going to be right in that gap. And no one wants that. That's going to be a toughy situation. I've had another question for you from Archie, all the way over from. Oh my God, what a legend Archie is. Does Matt get into games with a defined plan, or does he have the mindset of just asking many questions as possible as of his opponent?
Oh, I'm always. I mean, like. I wouldn't say I go in with a plan, but like I'd go in knowing what my list can do and what it's capable of, and obviously it always depends on what you're playing, what the mission is. Going in with a plan, like when I arrive to a table, I'll be like, okay, what am I playing first of all, and if there's anything I don't recognise, I'll get Azir up on my phone. I'll quickly Google the scrolls and refresh my memory, and I make sure I ask what everything does from my opponent. So I'm clued up. Also lets them know that I'm clued up, and that's a bit of a mind games thing. With a plan though, it's very. I think plans can be very. They're a bit of a double-edged sword. So like having like a vague plan, I think is good. So like, okay, if I get turn 1, I'm going to do such and such. If I get double turn, then maybe I'll do this and this. But it's just knowing, I think, what you're playing against, and what in their army is going to pose a problem to your list. So if I played something pretty standard that we see quite a lot.
Big War?
Big War.
Bone Reapers? Bone Reapers are pretty much they're the carbon copy army now, aren't they?
Yeah, so if I play Bone Reapers, I go, okay, what are these good at? They're really tanky, but they're low model count, so I'll immediately go, right, so to win the game, I'm going to want to destroy the Morzet Guard as quickly as I can, because they're their source of bodies. So I'll find the quickest opportunities to take out the Morzet Guard, or if they've got like a fast threat, maybe 15 Death Riders, I'll be like, okay, I need to get rid of that first. And I guess with this list I've been talking about, it's definitely like a I kill you list, then I claim the objectives. It doesn't really worry about the objectives so much in the first few turns, because it's got the power to be able to shift the bodies.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does. It does.
But I think the most important thing to any game is being able to react on the fly, because your opponent might people make mistakes. You're not perfect when you're playing. You make mistakes. You make plays that might be not completely 100% right. Things go wrong. The dice desert you. In the TTS tournament, my last opponent, I think he was Paul is right. I played. I brought the prime down and went to send him into some eels, and he completely fluffed. And I was like, oh, he's meant to delete those few eels, and he didn't. And then it's like, okay, I've lost the prime now. What do I do? And it's just about having, putting yourself in a good position to have answers to mistakes that might happen, if that makes sense, and react on the fly. I don't have like a set plan, I don't think, when I come to a game.
I think that's really fair. I always look at an opponent's army and I look for the matchups that are favourable to me. Like I want Unit X to go into Unit Y, or I know that the answer questions thing is always really positive, but sometimes you have to create your own answers for yourself initially. Because your opponent might have, so like Mortek Guard have got a 3-up rerollable save in close combat. Sweet, yeah. Do I have anything in my army that can actually kill that unit in close combat? Yes, no. Okay, so then I need to do something else. I don't then just like proudly soldier on and think, well, what if I try really hard? That isn't the case. Yeah. Like I have. Sorry, what are you saying?
I said most of the time, the dice are like you can't like your plan can't be I'm going to roll lots of sixes. Do you know what I mean? Or
no, it can't. It can't, Owen. You're right. I think that's the thing that you have to do is if anyone cares about my version of it, what I do is I get to the tabletop and I basically categorize each one of the units that I'm looking at, and then work out which ones I want to orchestrate to be in battle with to a degree, or what the grander scheme is, and then I enact it. So I don't know about you, I don't have a plan before I get there, but before I start deploying, I have a plan. And the deployment sometimes will change how that plan ends up working, because I've deployed something badly, or they've out-deployed me, or it's been a bit of a game, and it's like a 50-50 split. But trying to orchestrate those correct matchups is the way to try to play, I think. Well, that's how I feel anyway. Go on.
Yeah, that's completely I think the right thing to do, to be honest. Yeah, it's making the plays that you want rather than the opponent wants, isn't it?
Yeah. Effectively, with the grand thing and the trade-offs all being that the scenario is the thing that's really in play, and the things that you need to think about. Rael over on YouTube says that when I started doing the stream streak, he was like, I can't be asked with this guy, but now he looks forward to it. So that was a nice thing. So thanks, Rael, over on YouTube. How would non-demon Tzeentch Arcanites deal with that army? Talking about the Seraphon army, I'm not 100% certain. I think you'd have to look at it. I think already if you go non-demon Tzeentch Arcanites, you're in a tough spot. But
I wrote a really obnoxious list that was like 5 Gaunt Summoners and then Zangors, something like that, and it was all around like the Zangor banners, and it can do like some I can't remember how many. It's like 20 mortal wounds a hero phase or something stupid. I don't really know what you. I mean,
well, so actually, Halalex has smashed it like he always does in the chat. So there's a couple of cool mechanics. Actually, I was just talking about this today with Owen. There's a couple of cool mechanics that have just popped up to Tzeentch that have really made me think something through. So if you've got a Lord of Change and you unbind a spell on a 9 or more, you're able to cast the spell for the rest of the game. And I think that's lovely to get off Croak and start doing onto those skink heroes. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, either Celestial Deliverance or even Comet's Call. Either one, that would be great to nick off. But also the again, talking about the Curseling, who has the same ability, but instead of can cast it later on in the game, can immediately cast it back. So if you get pretty sweet on the Destiny dice, the problem is Croak can be at the back of the board, but if he wants to be in range to do X, like to do his his kind of board-wide spell, you could just flip it. Does that make sense? So there's some fun mechanics from the Curseling in there. Stealing the Comet's Call with Curseling would be a dream, says Angle. I agree. So there's some cool counter tech, especially when you've got the Destiny dice to more guarantee it. I think that's fun. Or even Lord of Change, who's got the roll 2d6 if you get a 6, obviously. So there's something to.
Is a good answer, I think, to Croak. Like, probably one of the few answers, I think. I don't know.
Maybe, I'm not sure. Like, but it's a fun little thing just because Rael asked, and I happened to be talking about it today. Otherwise, I'd not brought it up. So I've got one more thing to ask you before we go, if you don't mind. Unless there's anything else you think we haven't covered about the Seraphon so far.
I mean, in terms of the book, like, there's so much more than just this list in there. That's I think the real power of it. There's loads of lists in there that are like, I want to say like S tier. I think at least I've been looking at like maybe like an Allsaurus list because there's a lot of power in that, and I think if you buff them right, 40 Saurus warriors will kill just about anything. But
well, you have to get some Saurus warriors though. That's the drama.
Saurus warriors. Yeah, the book is really like I want to say it's a great book in letting you play the way you want to and still be competitive, if that makes sense. There's a lot of options in there that I think pose a lot of problems for a lot of matchups, regardless of just like loads of salamanders, if that makes sense.
Yeah, loads. I think it's actually a really wide book and a really deep book. I'd say almost all the units apart from Kroxigor, and then even then someone was talking to me about how much they like Kroxigor and they think it could be a thing. I wish. Yeah, I wish too, but I don't see that being the case. But something I'd like to bring up, and this isn't meant to be a gotcha. That's not the situation. But I wanted to have a conversation with you about it. Is because it's something that came up for me. I've been writing a pack for a tournament, so inside that I've been looking at some of the more janky elements of Age of Sigmar, and one of the things that's come up is height distances. So I'll give you some examples of things that I've seen. Yeah, we were at. We were at Facehammer. We were doing the coverage there, and we saw Luke put his eels on top of his own. So he put the Gloomtide shipwreck thing in the Richie's deployment zone. Then, because there's a 3-inch distance between that and the floor, he then flew his eels on top of it, got the double, then flew into the back and killed Richie's characters, which took it out. Right. So we've seen like what I would consider to be like, I was like, I mean, you can, but like, I'm not sure. Like, and so we've seen that stuff already. And I know that in some of, like you were just saying about the Realm Shaper, you can't put stuff on top of it, or you could put Croak, you said earlier, you could put that on top of a building. I was wondering what your thoughts were on vertical height distances in AOS. Because let me tell you what I would do in a tournament. And then see what you would put. Because in a tournament I would run, I would have flying units be able to fly over a thing, and infantry units be unable to walk up and down a building, because it looks weird. Like and that's my only justification. Not because of game jankiness, not because of anything else, because I think immersively it looks weird. Would be my only thoughts. Yeah.
I think the janky thing is. The way those fly rules work, and I think just a lot of people aren't like aware of it, if that makes sense.
Yes, I think that's super important.
I wasn't aware of it until I got gotcha'd, if that makes sense. And I was like, oh my god, yeah, you can totally do that. And now I sort of see it as just like another tactic in the toolbox, I guess.
Okay, fair point.
Because I think rules is written, you can do that.
Which I think, like, again, like when Luke did it in that event. No problems. Like you absolutely 100% factually can do it. It's not janky. It's just the facts. If you don't know it, then it seems weird. So it's not the case of if you can do it, because you can and should if you get the opportunity. My question more is do you think that a good house rule would be to stop that? Like, because I'm not sure what you think. That's the question.
I don't know, but it's tricky really, because like house rule like that, then you're sort of taking away the inherent. I want to say like the inherent, because stuff like fly is costed into the war scrolls, isn't it? And so for an army like eels, especially, that's a big strength of what they can do is they can fly. They can jump those screens. They can get into you. And
But none of that's to do with being halfway up a building. Like, like all of those, the ability to fly over stuff is absolutely okay. The ability for a unit of eels to sit on top of
to position themselves.
the position of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't look very thematic.
That's my only argument. I don't have any others beyond it. Doesn't look thematic.
You can get like hovering models. I don't know. That'd be cool. But I don't know. Maybe we can get adjustable stands. That could be cool.
Yeah. That's the only thought.
Not be a solution. I don't know. I mean, obviously, house ruling's down to the TO, and if you're going to house rule it, it's totally fine by like whatever, because you'd be going to the event knowing it, then, don't you?
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I guess I don't really like. I don't really have a.
Would you be pro or against that, or you're not? You don't have a position.
I'm not really bothered by it. Like,
that's fair.
If that makes sense, it's like it's whatever the pack is, isn't it? I guess if you're talking competitively, and obviously if you're not playing a competitive game, you're there to have fun and don't fly halfway up buildings.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I hate it that it can't sit up there, but it's there, says AOS Archie. Because there was, and it's a good conversation to have because it came up in 40k, as Angle was saying. I think it was Angle who was saying, no, Colonel Cabbage. It came up in 40k where they absolutely bollocksed up. So they did an FAQ, then they did another FAQ, then they had to do another FAQ to sort it out. So like
it's a flying vehicles
thing.
Yeah.
Like at one point you could be both not there and miles away at the same time. Year of Shorty, thanks for subscribing. Nikos says that he's pro against it, so I'm not sure what his position is, but I know he's got one. I just thought it would be an interesting conversation to have, especially with teleporting skinks or salamanders with you, and wonder what you think, because I know you've utilised it a tad, and I know that also I've seen it used at big events to win major tournaments. So I think it's easier even on TTS than it is actually in a real life tournament. I'm more pro it on Tabletop Simulator than I am off Tabletop Simulator. Like, does that make sense? Like,
yeah. It's like, I guess you can like lock the models in place if you want, and like at that height. But
I'm like, and it's also so much more the measuring. Like, so I'm more pro it. I just think if we were to be having a conversation with ourselves, I feel like dumping. Having it so that, because I thinking about my horrors, and as much as I think they're great, I don't want them to run halfway up a building. It will look weird. I also think it will add some element of tactics to Age of Sigmar, where there's a building, I can't run over it, I have to run around it. So deploy in you could be able to create a choke point for like an infantry line. That's cool. It makes fly even more powerful. It doesn't make fly less powerful. It makes it better.
I'd argue that that's a lot of the case anyway, because a lot of the time you don't want to waste movement going up buildings. So I find, like, maybe it's just me in games I play, that I find myself going around buildings anyway if I can, or like unless I've got like something stupid fast, like a Keeper of Secrets, where I can like go, okay, I can go up this 2 inches and that doesn't really matter. But I guess like when you get to those top tables at like major events, if we're talking about the fly rules taking out major events, then I think if you're playing at that level, then you probably should be aware of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's. No, I'm with you. I think it's not a question of can you even do it?
Yeah.
You absolutely can, and at a tournament should be trying to do so to win the event. That's not the question. I'm pro it. Like, if you can do it, do it. I'm super about it. It's more like should a rule be put in place to a house rule? And I don't often talk about comp or house ruling stuff. And the only reason I'm only having this conversation with you is because I think, well, I've loved this conversation. Think you've been brilliant, so thank you so much. And I'd love to talk more Seraphon with you again in the future. I just thought it was a thing that I thought of today, because me and Owen played, and I was able to put a unit on the side of a building, and I was like, I can. And I was like, I can, but should I? Like, does that make sense? So I was like, what would I put in a pack? And I've been mulling it over, and I think I probably would make it so that you couldn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was it. All right, cool, great. Thanks for having
While you're
that with
there,
me.
house rule, half god berserk.
Listen, I'd love to, mainly because they're ugly ginger lads.
Yeah.
And if you are an ugly ginger lad, I'm sorry, someone will love you. because
Oh, God.
because I'm hoping someone will love me with this personality, and that's unlikely. But Matt, you've been a pleasure. If we wanted to get in touch with you or find out, do you want to talk online with people about this? And if you do, how would we talk to you?
Yeah, definitely. You can find me on the TTS server on Discord. You can also find me on Twitter at @mgouldesborough. If you know how to spell that, I don't know. But yeah, I'm always happy to chat Seraphon or General Warhammer or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, great. W.S. Soren, thanks for donating 500 bits to the show. Monster Marathi, Bloodthirsters. I missed what the rest of it said. I'm sorry, but thanks for donating some bits to the show. You're great. And thanks, Matt, for being on the show. I hope you continue. I hope you do the three-peat. Yeah, you're onto it. 2 wins down, 1 win to go. So you'll be able to, if you guys are interested.
What do I do then, Rob? What's my goal in life?
I just give you the show. You just take over. You just do it from the houseboat, and I go home. I into the wind. Which will be a great day. So please join us live when we do the coverage for that. So that's next weekend. So not this Saturday. So the Saturday after, which, as of recording, would make it the 30th of May. I think that's right. So 30th of May. So join us for that and see if
I'll be there.
see if Matt can do the three-peat. The crown will slip. Who will take out the king? If you have joined us live, like everyone has, Wargaming Dad, Colonel Cabbage, all of you guys, W. Soren, anyone who subscribed, the Wondering Higgins, not Bobzilla, because you are a spam bot trying to make us go on to adviewers.com, which we won't do, so fuck you. But thanks for joining us. Thank you to everyone else who gave Patreon. We couldn't do it without you at all. You guys are brilliant. Thanks very much, and stay hydrated. Matt, any final shout-outs before we go?
Just shout out all the guys at South London Legion, and shout out Hugh at Bad Moon. Hope they're doing well. Hope they're staying open. Keeping me supplied of paints, so that's all good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Great.
All right,
Great
thank you, and goodbye.